Matthew 5, verses 13 to 20. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, nor the least stroke of a pen will be by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
It's not all the time in my ministry that I have an opportunity to invite the bishop to preach. And not just invite the bishop to preach, it is his first sermon since consecration. And Bishop Martin, the message has been recorded. No pressure. We look forward to hearing from God.
Yes, no pressure. It is so lovely to be with you. I can't tell you how nice it is to be with you. And I already feel very blessed by your singing, the testimonies, your smiles. So really wonderful to be here with you. And I look forward to talking with you more after the service as well, and getting to know you a bit and hearing about your joys and your struggles and your hopes and dreams and all of that kind of stuff. I really look forward to that. So I'm not rushing off at the end of the service. I'll enjoy talking to you. I wanted to start with some questions for you. I'm not going to ask who's the oldest. I'll spare your blushes on that front. But I would like to know who's been coming to this church for a really long time. Now, we probably should put some hands beginning to go up, a few hands going up. Very good, very good. So, who's been coming here for more than 10 years? Oh, a good number. Has anyone been coming for more than 20 years? And I know the church has probably met in different places, so there's a few, 20, more than 30. Can we go 35? Still? 40? So, shout out. Has someone been coming for 50? 50 years. That's amazing. That's amazing. I was probably 4 or 5. I was definitely very little when you started coming. That's very impressive. So I guess for you, notwithstanding that the church has met in different places, this community is very familiar to you and others who've been coming here for a long time. It's in your blood. It's probably become part of who you are. And you've probably got lots of memories, some which will be joyful and happy, and some which may be sad. Inevitably, life has its sadnesses, doesn't it? But let's now turn it around. Who's quite new here? Any hands? Quite new? Yes. So, in the last year, less than that? Past 6 months. Anyone less than 6 months? So you're perhaps one of the newer people here, yeah. Yeah, okay. So yeah, the welcome was obviously good enough because you've kept coming back. So that's something, yes. But being new is altogether different, isn't it? You haven't necessarily got the familiar landmarks. It can feel a bit strange. It can even make you feel anxious. Will these people welcome me? Will they accept me? It can be a bit unsettling. And just to continue this a little bit more, we've probably got a number of you who are at secondary school. Anyone in year 7? Year 8? I bet you can remember your first day at secondary school in year 7. It's kind of a bit scary, isn't it, that transition? It's fairly obvious why I'm going down this line, isn't it? I am one of the 3 newest bishops in the Church of England. I've often felt a little bit like a kind of toy you might unpack at Christmas, all shiny. I don't know if I look shiny, but I'm very new. So I've been thinking a lot about being new. I've been excited, definitely, and thanks be to God for bringing me to this point in ministry. But also, just occasionally, I've thought, Martin, what have you done? I felt a bit disorientated. I felt a bit nervous sometimes. But what I've been wondering is, what can we learn about God and what it is to be a disciple from such situations of being new, finding ourselves in new environments? Because it's part of life, isn't it? New jobs, new house, new church, new school, surrounded by people we don't know, facing change, feeling unsettled. And now, with the cost of living pressures, that's quite unsettling, isn't it, for lots of people, for lots of us. So is this something we just have to kind of grin and bear it? Or might it help us draw closer to God and to see more clearly the path of discipleship? And I'm convinced it's that through those new situations, perhaps feeling a bit unsettled, perhaps feeling a bit vulnerable, we can draw closer to God and learn something more about what it is to follow Jesus. So first off, when we're facing new situations, facing change, feeling unsettled, we may, as I say, feel a little vulnerable. But being vulnerable is part and parcel of what it is to be human, created and loved by God. And we don't want to live our lives pretending that we're kind of invincible. And there's a bit of a tendency in the world for people to put on a front of invincibility, to actually deny their frailties and their vulnerabilities. But we are fragile creatures, and we definitely, as we get older, we definitely start to realise that, don't we? And Jesus, I think, shows us the way here. Yes, Jesus is our rock and Jesus is strong, but God, in sending his only Son to live amongst us, made Jesus vulnerable, didn't he? And we see that clearly in the Gospels. Jesus is misunderstood. He gets tired. I love those bits where he's always going to a quiet place, very wise, and yet people follow him. And ultimately he's rejected and suffers and is killed on a cross. Jesus is with us in our vulnerability, in our fragility, and our struggles. But note also how we might feel at times of change when we're facing new situations and feeling unsettled, how that can also be helpful in making us more compassionate to our neighbour, people facing similar situations. I felt this very strongly on Thursday when I was consecrated bishop, which was quite a big deal. And it made me think, Martin, you must remember the next time when you're with new deacons and new priests, what they're going through. It made me more compassionate, more empathetic. So this is what I felt God prompting me to say today, to share with you today. But I want to go a little further and ask whether our Bible reading helps us draw out any of the things I've been saying. The gospel reading that we heard read is really about what the righteous do. And the psalm for today, Psalm, I think, 112, is also about what the righteous do. But it's worth just pausing and saying, who are the righteous? And I think the righteous are understood in a particular way through this passage and through other passages in the Bible. The righteous are people who have faith in Jesus Christ. They don't just follow the law, but they follow the law as interpreted by Jesus. Jesus, we heard, came to fulfill the law, didn't he? So the righteous are people who have faith in Jesus Christ, who interprets the law for us. And if I just start with Psalm 112, though we didn't have it read. Verse 1, what do the righteous do? The righteous are people who delight in his commandments. Verse 1. And verse 8, the righteous, their hearts are steady. They're not afraid. So at times of change, we're encouraged to turn to Jesus, aren't we? To trust in his commandments, to not be afraid, and to hold steady. It's easier said than done, but we can offer it to God in prayer, can't we? And then our gospel reading, as I'm sure you know, it comes after the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. And I think looking at the Beatitudes, you get more about what it is to be human, what it is to be vulnerable, as a normal state of affairs for us human beings. So a bit earlier than our passage, verse 3, those who are poor in spirit are blessed. Those who are mourn are blessed and will be comforted. Those who are persecuted are blessed. So being vulnerable, I kind of want to say, it's not something we should be ashamed of or hide away or feel we need to get a grip of ourselves, pull ourselves together. It's part of being human. It's part of how God made us. And as the Beatitudes tell us, those moments of vulnerability are the moments when God is most close to us. And again, verse 19 of Matthew chapter 5. Whoever keeps those commandments that we hear in the Beatitudes and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And what does Jesus do in all this? Jesus helps us to see clearly. The world's a confusing place, isn't it? But Jesus is what helps us see clearly. Not, as the passage says, abolishing the law, but helping us to interpret it properly. He comes to fulfill the law, to identify the things that really matter and the things that don't. Because it's easy to interpret the law kind of slavishly or woodenly, but not really with our heart. And Jesus helps us interpret the law with our heart and see the difference between what really matters and what doesn't. And then we're told that if we follow his commandments, we will be comforted. We will inherit the earth. These are amazing things, aren't they? We will be filled. We'll receive mercy. We'll see God. That's quite something. We'll inherit the kingdom. All very special and powerful things, but that's what's promised here. I think that's enough from me. I, as I say, look forward to hearing from you and your hopes and your dreams for this community and for this church. Really like to hear what's on your heart and mind today. But remember what it is to be human. Know that Jesus is close, and close to us when life is challenging or unsettling or we feel vulnerable. And stay close to his commandments as the righteous do. And I think you've here got this wonderful strapline, loving God, being family, bringing hope. I really like that. Super. And then extend your hand to those around about you for whom life is also challenging and unsettling. And know that when you do that, you're extending Jesus' hand, a hand of love and of compassion, and that God will bless you. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for those words, Bishop Martin. Indeed, being human, being vulnerable, sometimes we are challenged on every side. Sometimes we're weighed down. Sometimes we are, Lord, I don't have what it takes to take another step. Now in our prayer ministry, I invite you to come forward and draw close to the Lord, meet up with brothers and sisters who can come alongside and pray with you and encourage you in your walk with the Lord. So we'll have a short time of our prayer ministry. I think we'll have some music or whatever in the background, and please feel free to come to the side and someone will come alongside and pray with you.
There's a song, and the lyrics go like this. Just think over the lyrics. When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply